Well, hello everyone. This is Sean DeFrancis, and I am going to be working on my Funhouse Dungeon on this stream. I started doing this last week and ran into an issue that I hope will not be a factor this week. I had huge sound problems, but I think I fixed that. So let me make some other adjustments here because I'm hearing an echo. There it is. And I can't watch myself on delay because that will really confuse me. So the whole purpose of this stream is to continue my concept of a D&D Sunday. Sundays are when my group normally gets together and plays D&D. We've gone 2, almost 3 weeks without playing D&D, and I realized that I really miss it. I really miss not having D&D conversations and doing D&D stuff on Sundays during this time. So I figure I'll take an hour out of each Sunday and do a live stream. I'm currently live streaming for nobody, but that's okay. Eventually people may want to watch or pop in and see what's going on here. And one of the things I was always struggling with is, what do I live stream? What do I want to talk about? What can I add to the community? And I realized I've never really built a Funhouse dungeon. I've always built standard dungeons for dungeon crawls. And the concept of Funhouse Dungeon is a dungeon that is kind of wacky, filled with puzzles. It's not just combat adventures. There's puzzles and weirdness, traps, things that need to be deciphered, decoded, understood. It's just a lot more than running in, killing something, rescuing something. It's really understanding the dungeon itself as a puzzle and an entity in and of itself. And I've always liked Funhouse Dungeons. I love reading Funhouse Dungeon adventures, just how wild and wacky some of the traps and puzzles can get. I often read Funhouse Dungeon adventures to steal their traps and puzzles for my adventures, which is an awful thing to say, that I am not that creative to come up with all those traps and puzzles for myself. But that's the nature of it. So what I am doing here is hopefully giving back all those times that I have stolen traps and puzzles from those Funhouse adventures. I am giving back and creating my own. Well, you'll see, I really am not. I'm using online resources to come up with ideas and concepts for these traps. So the nature of the stream is it goes on for about an hour. I got started a little bit late today, so this will be over in about 40 minutes. I've learned in my last one that it takes about 15-20 minutes per room. And you can see from the bit of the map that I have showing that just this first dungeon has like 36 rooms in it, this first floor of the dungeon. This was a randomly created map created from Dunjon, DONJON.com. I just took a randomly generated map, and I'm using that as the core element of what we're doing here. And I'm just going room by room, as it's numbered here, and defining what's in each and every room. There is a cohesive theme to all of this. Let me bring up my... why is that not coming up? There it is. So this is my document that I am coding everything in. And you can see I have already developed the concept of the villain. And the villain is essentially the individual who built this dungeon, and why this dungeon was built was to house specialized weapons that were built. We had a conversation last night. I had a conversation with myself to show you exactly how weird this gets, about what who should have developed these weapons. And I came up with the idea of proto-orcs. And I really was thinking of orcs as once being a super advanced civilization that fell to the wayside and became barbarous and murderous and worshippers of Grumsh and that sort of thing. But they had developed these mighty weapons. And the villain I started classifying as a super prepper. This villain is preparing for a prophetic apocalypse, and these weapons are part of that. So the whole idea of this keep, this citadel, this fortress that this villain has created is to house and protect these weapons and other things, other treasures, other things that can be found and exploited for experience by PCs exploring this dungeon for this apocalyptic event, an event that never happened. So the prophecy was wrong, or other heroes thwarted the event without these weapons. But people know that these weapons exist in this fortress, and now is the time. The fortress has been discovered, the location has been revealed, and now player characters can adventure and go into this dungeon and look for these weapons and other treasures. And I outlined the 5 weapons that are there. So there's a great sword, there's a long sword, a long bow, dagger sets, dagger set, like 2 daggers, so they matching daggers. I always like that concept, and a mace. So that's the essence. That's the purpose of this dungeon. And of course, this person who built the dungeon wants to protect these things and protects them with traps and puzzles and monsters that may have been placed into the dungeon, that sort of thing. So fun stuff to start exploring and playing with. And if you are watching, you can participate. A lot of the encounters I'm building, puzzles and that sort of thing, that I'm pulling off of websites and random puzzle generators and trap generators and that sort of thing, require input, require tweaking, and hopefully filling in on the theme of this crazed prepper, apocalyptic prepper villain, and still haven't fully fleshed this. I keep saying villain. We don't know if this person was a bad guy or not. Who knows? All we know is this person built a dungeon with crazy traps, crazy puzzles, vast treasure, and monsters to be slain. It is adventure bait. So let's get into what I built out. I would normally say, hey, go watch the previous video. But that previous video, as I said, I messed up horribly on the sound. You couldn't hear me. You could hear background music just wonderfully, but you couldn't hear me at all. I now am monitoring my sound very closely, and I believe you can hear me just fine, and there may be music coming in and out as we go along. I have found this fantasy royalty-free playlist, which hopefully is truly royalty-free, but who knows? If I get DMCA takedown notices, you'll know why, because I used this playlist and it was not royalty-free. It was not Twitch-friendly, even though it says it is Twitch-friendly. Yeah, let's get some music going, because there will be some dead spots coming up. So we start off. Did I start off with room? Oh, I started off with room 2. Yeah. So I started off a little bit weird. I didn't have a plan when I first began. So we have room 2 outlined. And let me bring up my dungeon map. So I outlined room 2 and then outlined room 33. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. So the map that I originally downloaded from Dungeon had different numbers for everything, and then I went through and put in my own numbers. I'm confusing myself. So actually, room 2 is room 1, so let me update that. And room 33 is now room 2. So right away, room 1, we built out our first puzzle to be deciphered. And essentially, let me get us back so you can read along with me. So in that first room, the party arrives in the room, and it's a 20-foot wide room in all directions. It's dark, made of stone walls, floors. There's an unlit brazier up against the entrance wall near the door. There look to be randomly constructed shelves or alcoves about 5 feet deep, protruding from both the left and right walls. Statue of a man in the middle who looks to be wearing heavy armor. He's looking directly at a statue of a basilisk who is standing in one of the alcoves. So the puzzle here is if the party can block his gaze to the basilisk, he'll turn into himself again. He will tell the party to get out, to abandon their pursuit of what lays in this dungeon, and then he fades away because he was an advanced illusion. He was wearing keys. The keys were not part of the illusion and can be taken from the floor once he fades away. Pretty weak defense, I know. We may do another pass and polish that up a little bit. The original concept was he was a real living being, and I was disturbed that the first thing that the party encounters is a dying man that they could knew nothing about. That really puts a damper on the heroic and fun feeling of the dungeon. So I went a little bit nicer. Room 2, this is a room that they can't get into unless they have those keys from room 1. The south door of this room is locked, and giving it pretty difficult. It can be broken down through strength. I don't like anything that is impossible to bypass through unless there's magic involved. But, you have strength and you have to break it down. But it's a difficult door to break down. So really the keys are the better way of doing it. But if for some reason it's not clicking to use the keys, or they're just not going in that other room and they're locking in on this door, they can batter this door down. It just takes a lot, and it'll make a lot of noise. And this is another thing that will develop over time, is a random encounter table. And one of the things I want to do, because I hate random encounter tables that are just entirely entirely for the dungeon. I want random encounter tables for sections of the dungeon. Very entertaining, very good video. You see, it's large, so I want to block off eventually sections of the dungeon and have specific random encounter tables for each section. And then maybe in spots, like this is advanced thinking, not really there yet, but maybe in spots have overlapping. So if you make a lot of noise or something right here, maybe there's 2 tables that get rolled on. It's truly a awful thing to do, is to make noise in this one specific spot. So we're going to have random encounters. So making noise is bad. You don't want to make noise. We have some oddities that we're going to have to deal with. You can see that there's some weird dead ends, but I'm explaining that. The whole idea of these dead ends is it's designed that way. It's designed to waste time, to allow the defenses of the dungeon to come into play. So this is going back to some old school role playing where map keeping mapping the dungeon is going to be kind of critical here in certain cases to figure out where you are. I am really going to avoid teleporting puzzles. As a DM, I will let you know that every fight, every time a teleporting puzzle comes up and there's somebody mapping, the fight is somehow it wasn't explained to them correctly, that there's a missing element, or so it gets put back onto me as a DM for not communicating certain things correctly to them. And if only I would have said X or said Y or said Z, they would have figured it out. The map wouldn't have been messed up. They wouldn't have gotten lost. And it's honestly just not worth my time and effort to go back and assure them that, I said everything correctly. One of the first dungeons I ever ran was In Search of the Unknown, which is a very simple dungeon crawl, and there's a teleporting trap in that, and it just wastes so much time because the players are so certain that I, as a DM, have made a mistake, and it's tough to say. It's like, I have not made a mistake. I am not wrong. Something weird has happened. It's just easier. Oh, that was a teleport trap and blah, 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 which then removes the mystery and the weirdness of it. But I just avoid teleporting traps. Unless it's something like, I think it's Tomb of Horrors that teleports you back to the entrance. It's not teleporting you into a labyrinth to confuse you, or teleporting you into the exact same looking room in a different part of the dungeon, because that's what really messes things up. So I'll be avoiding teleporting traps like that. Not necessarily teleporting traps within an area that the players know and understand and can see. So teleporting platforms, that could be kind of cool. So open to those kind of things. So right now we are moving into room 3. So this is what I'm considering the main chamber. So I'm going to label it that just to make it clear for me later, because as I do this from week to week, it's going to be confusing at times. So on the weeks where we play D&D, one of the things that I plan on doing with the stream, this may or may not be interesting to anybody, but doing a campaign diary, where I may have one or two of my players join me and we'll chat about the campaign, about their characters, about what's going on. May not be that interesting since we're not streaming the game, but it's honestly, it's just for me. It's chatting. It's D&D chat. I just want to talk D&D. I want to talk about fun uses of spells. I want to talk about character classes. I just want to talk D&D. So that's really what this is about. So even if you join me in one of these Let's Builds as we're building the dungeon, it's really about characters and encounter designs and ways of tricking player characters, that sort of thing. So not a intense kind of session here. It really is just BSing about D&D. So here we are. We're in the main chamber. What do we want? So this is, as you see, that this chamber has 1, 2, 3. Why can't I count? Has 6 exits. Or entrances, I guess. 6 entrances, 6 portals. I don't know. 6 doors. There we go. We're not going to, as the players come through, this, I guess I should explain, but this is just a dead end. This is just a a waste of time for the players right here. So let's focus in on room 3. What's going on in room 3? Let's use one of our online resources. I'm gonna bring up my puzzle generator. Bloop. Puzzle generator. Why is that not showing all the puzzle generator? Boop, 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 boop. Doo-doo-doo. Puzzle generator. Okay, there we go. So let's do some randomization here. So kind of liking this already. In the middle of the room is a 5-foot wide wooden platform that sits just above the floor with a large dark bronzed statue of a naked fat man with a long flowing beard sitting with his legs crossed. He has a large smile with great big teeth and is holding his hands up with his palms facing each other in a gap between shoulder width. Between his hands is a piece of blue silk string that is hanging from one hand to the other. The string is broken. Oh, when the string is broken, the iron door unlocks audibly with a series of clicks. Okay. So let's think about this. Go back to just gonna copy this right out. I'm not going to use this fully because I'm not liking this as a puzzle concept overly. Yikes, let's not do that. Control-Shift-V. Control-Shift-V is your friend. Control-Shift-V strips out the formatting of what you copied and formats it into the document in which you're pasting it. Okay, so we have the 5-foot wooden platform raised slightly above the floor. That's fine. All this is fine. Even the blue silk string is fine, but that's where it ends. Cutting the string is too simple. Too simple. Or at least just to open a door is too simple. What we want there is what else is in the room. Let's think about that. So we have this main structural thing in the middle of the room. We have the 6 doors. Are all 6 doors? Are all 5 doors locked? I think the door leading in shouldn't be locked. We just already went through a locked door. It can be stuck. I'll play with that in a bit. What else could be in this room? We want tapestries. So this is a prepper, thinking prepper mentality. But, you know, he's also rich and powerful and something of that sort going on. So the walls are covered with tapestries. So what are those tapestries? What's going on there? Sorry, I'm messing with sound again because I'm hearing a slight echo and I have this fear. There it is. I am sorry if you were hearing that echo as well, because you probably were. I am new to all this Twitch streamy stuff, so I apologize. This is really the second time I've been doing it in this way. So I do apologize if you were hearing weirdness in the background there. So we have this doomsday prepper villain type, and he has been decorating his dungeon. I'm thinking, what are these tapestries? And I think these tapestries should be part of that doomsday prophecy. They should be depicting the plagues or the evils, the things that's going to happen with this apocalyptic event. So each tapestry what am I saying? Depicts an event from the apocalyptic prophecy. So let's say we have 4 walls. Let's say there's 2 tapestries per wall. So there's 8 tapestries. First tapestry. I don't know if we have anybody in chat. Anybody? What's an apocalyptic event? So I like a scourge plague. No. Yeah, scourge plague. So like a locust plague, but a plague of scourges. Those bat-like creatures that suck blood. Like giant mosquitoes is really what they are. A scourge rot grub plague. So get you flying and crawling. Another event. So we haven't really defined like what this prophetic event that never happened was going to be about. So we can just really go wild with it. I don't want it all to be like monster plagues. So we can have like what if it poison watered, three tornadoes. Ooh, we can have this whole, yeah. So the other wall, we have, so each wall, yes, okay. So each wall is going to depict one monster plague element and one elemental plague element. So we have Surge Rot Grub Plague and Poisoned Waters. Then we're going to have what's another good natural purple worm plague? Yeah, the attack of the purple worms. And tornadoes. And then, so earth. So earthquakes are going to be on the other wall. And then good monster plague. Undead. Undead are always a good plague. Seven. Earth, wind. So this is going to be fire. So our depiction here is just going to be magical fires, volcanic fires. What makes it interesting? I think we'll stick as natural as possible. So volcanic fires. And that makes a great tapestry of a volcano erupting and brimstone and ash and people fleeing. Get that whole Pompeii vibe going. The 7th tapestry, monster plague. Do some elementals, demons maybe. This is supposed to be an apocalyptic event. So yeah, let's do Rise of the Demons, which can coincide with the volcano kind of thing. So we have the 8 tapestries in this room. We have this weird statue in the center with a blue silk string that is hanging from one hand to the other. Essentially, we want the players to know to cut the string, but what effect does cutting the string have? So the other doors are going to be locked. Again, the prepper doesn't want people to go exploring willy-nilly. I'm going to say that the statue can move. It's on kind of like a lazy Susan. I am almost... This would be one of those things, and I hate this but love this, where I would not have a solution. I would let the players... Like, the doors are locked, so all doors are locked. And then we'll set standard difficulty. What do we have for the other one? DC 25. Yeah. DC 25, HP 20. It's a little absurd, not awful, but boy, if they want to bash through these doors, it's going to take some effort. The statue can be moved and face the different walls. So I would let the players let them sort this out any way they want. Maybe they think that they have to burn the string if the statue is facing the firewall, or bash it with rock if it's facing the earth wall, something along those lines. But the reality is anything they do to that string will open the doors in which, well, I mean, that's up to the DM. I'm just going to call this player's choice. Let the player solve the puzzle. First guess is wrong. And then let the second guess solve the puzzle. Unless it's absurd. Like, you have to... If the first guess was to cut the string and nothing happens because that was their first guess, and their second guess is to pee on a statue, then, maybe you want to accept that, maybe not. But any guess, any solution that is attempting to solve the puzzle, valid. Just don't accept the first guess, even if it is wonderfully convoluted and involves a lot of spell casting and all that. Ooh, so that's the. It really should take up a resource. So it should use up food, water, light, spells, anything that is necessary to survive in the dungeon. It should use up that sort of level of resource. So if they end up casting a spell at it, a fireball, destroying it, something that, fine, as long as it's used up a resource. This is going a little meta, but I like that because it's realistically all that I want that puzzle to do. And the tapestries can be used to inform what is going on in the room, or if they care. You may find that they don't care all that much, and that's always an awful factor. That the players just don't care about the details. But you always find somebody. There'll be somebody who cares. That's all, ultimately, that matters. Finding that one person who cares and play to that player. Let them soak up all the world lore that you create, all the details, all the in jokes that you place. I often layer too much detail that I think my players will get, and they don't, and then I'm left after the game like I want to share. I end up sharing because I'm an awful DM in that regard, where I just like blurt out like, "Oh, and did you notice this great riddle that I had created? I was talking about this thing all along because I was planting clues, and the clues were never picked up, and even after the fact they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that word meant that thing that you thought everyone knew that it meant." And that's when I realized like I'm so out of the common vernacular of modern gamers. I'm still like, I studied heraldry for D&D. Nobody else does. That's just not, nobody cares. Nobody cares at what the color silver means on a shield or anything of that sort. I found that kind of stuff fascinating. Okay, now I'm just whining. So let's let's move on. So this is kind of that entrance zone, the entrance room to the dungeon. Let me bring up our dungeon map again. So this is room 3. So we have this little stubby room off to the side that I think I have to address. It's not a room in and of itself. So we're going to call this the side room. So what we are saying with the statue is only the doors in which it is pointed at open. So luckily, like the players aren't going to point it at the door in which they came through. And that's the direction in which it is facing when they start. So when they enter, the statue is facing them. Let me just make that note. Statue is facing the west door. So it may be confusing. North is to the left of the map. So west is the bottom of the map. East is the top of the map. You probably don't care that much, but just making it clear for anybody who is watching and doesn't want to be confused. So the statue is facing west. So they'll spin it towards one of these walls, ideally. Maybe they'll try doing an odd angle, something of that sort. But really, at that point, it's like one wall or the other is what's going to open. And those are the doors that open. That's just to keep it puzzly. And one of the things I've often found with players is choice paralysis. So if they point it towards this door, only one door is there. This is an archway. So if everything fails, they still have a way through into other parts of the dungeon. So this isn't a dead end if they just boff everything and they don't even attempt to solve the puzzle and they're just confused. They have a path of least resistance. So if they point at this wall, they have two doors that open. This is one door that will open, and we're going to call this the side room. Room 3. And what should be in this side room? I would like this to be a small combat encounter. Almost a trivial combat encounter, but I want to seed the fact that this is not a safe place to be just wandering about willy-nilly, that there is threats. So in situations like this, so side room 3, small room filled with cobwebs. We all know what cobwebs mean. Filled with cobwebs and a dank odor. The ceiling stretches upward into the darkness. And of course, what's going to come down are 2 large spiders. I'm not going to put in stat blocks at this time. I am using D&D Beyond to build out the encounters, and I honestly don't know what the rights and all that kind of stuff are for streaming that information. And this keeps it generic. If you want to use a Pathfinder or some other fantasy game, you can just use their version of 2 large spiders. What we're looking for here is this is a trivial combat encounter. So this is ideally over in 2 turns, not even 2 rounds. Like, maybe the spiders will get an attack, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll throw torches in there and burn up all the cobwebs. The spider takes some fire damage, easily stabbed, killed, that sort of thing. No treasure found in here. No bound up old adventurers discovered in here. It is just a like, oh, wait, yes, combat can happen here sorts of things, and kind of lays in that this is an abandoned facility. So the types of encounters may come in a variety of ways. So it could be insectoid encounters or planned monster encounters that have been seeded into the dungeon. Undead show up everywhere. They're easy, wonderful. Oozes and gelatinous cubes and that sort of thing all are possible within a dungeon like this. So there we go. That is... I know that this is kind of slowish and we really only got through 1 room, but that is the nature of this. As I said, I'm going to be doing this once a week, building the Funhouse Dungeon whenever I don't have anything else to talk about. One of the other things I will be doing on the stream is what I'm calling scavenging. So it's going through all the other older D&D resources like the Wilderness Adventure, the Wilderness Guide, and there's a Catacomb Guide, and just all these other side weird books that TSR had published for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and sucking out the good information, seeing what's there, seeing what we can salvage. So I'm calling it my salvage operation, salvaging D&D wherever I can, even all the way up to 4th edition. I know Matt Colville has brought a lot of attention to some of the things that the monster design and that in 4th edition, and stealing some of those elements and bringing it into 5th edition. And I love that. And that's kind of what gave me the idea was, let's see what else is out there. And there's a lot of great pre-written stuff already. Things like how to mine, how to set up a mine. Like maybe your PCs want to start mining something, or maybe that is part of a greater campaign goal, is you need to mine out some moonstone or some other crazy ore. So how do you do that? Maybe you need to mine your own diamonds. How do you do that? So that's one of the things I'll be doing. And then the other is just doing a campaign diary for the adventure or the campaign I'm currently running. We had just done completed our first session. And there's not a lot to talk about in that first session. It is character introductions, and they went a little bit wacky in a restaurant. And that's pretty much it. It was supposed to be a simple intro adventure that we never got to the action for. In fact, I don't even think dice were rolled. But they had fun. I had fun. But I would like to keep a campaign diary. For those of you who are interested, there's a World Anvil. I can share that. We can share some of that information, discuss. Love feedback, love conversation, love just to chat about D&D, and that's what these are going to be about. I like to keep this about an hour long. I could go on for multiple hours, but I know if I do this after my campaign sessions, it's going to be already 4.5 hours of D&D. My voice is already going to be going out, which I hope my players want to participate in these. But if they don't, it'll just be me chatting with those of you who are listening. These will also go up on YouTube after the fact, just cause I want to participate in the D&D YouTube community as much as possible. I think I have good ideas. I love the ideas that I'm getting from other people, and I just want to participate. I want to share my opinions on everything. They may not be great opinions, but, they're opinions nonetheless. So this is my time. See, it's a little bit past 7 o'clock right now, so I am going to be signing off. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for participating, and I do hope that you find some entertainment value out of this. If you do, please let me know. I'm at Sean D. Francis on Twitter. That's pretty much my only main social media contact point. But you can comment on the YouTube. You can join chat here in Twitch. We'll find other ways of connecting where we can. So thank you all, and I will see y'all later.